Okay, let's switch gears for a little while and work on another Porsche. What the heck? So I had this super nice 1987 Porsche 944 Turbo, otherwise known as 951, and done a lot of work on it, some of which I documented, not much on YouTube. But the last major thing I did was swap out the interior. I got this old junk car, another 87 944 in Kentucky last year, and exterior was horrible on it. It's just a parts car, no title. But oddly, the interior on that junk car was really nice once it cleaned up, and it was the Mocha Brown. I love the Mocha Brown. And I thought to myself, that interior in this red 951 is going to be awesome. So the last piece I have to do as far as that interior swap is the dash. So let's take a look at the dash that came with this turbo car. It's the original interior on this was linen. And on a linen interior, you would get a black dash. Let's look inside of here, and let me turn on the light. So, yeah, here's the interior from that junk car from Kentucky, the 87 automatic. The seats, pretty decent condition. Everything, the Mocha Brown, the carpet was good. Pull this garbage out of here. I got these funky green floor mats in here, but yeah, all that super nice. A little dirty right now, and even the carpet in the trunk cleaned up nicely. I think I doctored it up with a little bit of interior spray paint. So regarding the dash, though, which I have yet to change, it's black, and you can see it's got the linen color beige on the bottom. This darker brown area is just where the sun has burnt the vinyl. In theory, I could mask this off and use some of that interior fabric paint and change this color to the Mocha Brown. But the problem is up top here, the cracks are just horrible, and it's starting to delaminate the vinyl from it's basically like a hard foam underneath. So you could cover all that up with a dash mat, but it just wouldn't sit well with this sticking up. I mean, you know, it's just really, this is one of the worst crack dashes I've had. So my goal, let me show you this other car. This is another 87 that came with the Mocha Brown interior, and its dash was cracked some. What I did, I just got this really nice dash mat. And this car has got like a double leather option, which is really rare. The door cards, the under part of the dash, all that's leather. Now the dash itself is still the vinyl and subject to cracking. But as you can see, this interior is just awesome. The turbo car will never look this good, but this is the look that I want with the dark brown throughout the car. So let's go take a look at the dash I'm going to put in that red turbo car. Okay, from the junk car from Kentucky, this is what I got out, and I've done some work on it. It had some pretty bad cracks. This one was the worst. And I got these kits, vinyl repair kits, And the first step you do is it's basically epoxy in the cracks to stop them from cracking more. And then they have some other, almost like a paste, colored paste, that you can put over the cracks. It doesn't work very good. It takes a really long time to cure up. So I'm just going to install this dash in that 951 and get a nice dash mat. The bottom of it is the Mocha brown and is in good condition, because that's the part that's going to show. This little crack here will show because we're looking at it upside down, you know that. Otherwise, it's in pretty good shape. I just was looking at some corrosion. That Kentucky car was pretty eat up on the inside. The metal was worse than the fabric interior. The vinyl and all that stuff was actually in much better shape. So I'm gonna wire brush that, although you don't see it. I just want to stop that corrosion. Same thing down here. Clean that up some. So the first step is to get the dash out of the turbo car, and I'll video all that, and then install this somewhat better dash in there. And I'm also going to replace all the incandescent bulbs in the instrument cluster with LEDs. I'm supposed to get that parts package here in the next couple days. So anyway, I'm going to go to work on this dash a little bit more, cleaning some more, getting rid of that corrosion down here, just wire brushing it, and prepare it for installation. I need to do a little bit of a car rodeo in here to get that turbo car where it's not blocking everything, because once you take the dash out, it won't be starting for a while. So probably swap the gold one for the red one. So yeah, this will be a fun little deal. Follow along, and hopefully it'll be successful. So I wanted to show you guys something. This black area is actually fabric tape. Some guys would call it duct tape. Entertainment business, we call it gaffer tape. It is put on here at the factory to keep the bottom vinyl from peeling. It's to join the bottom vinyl to the top vinyl, pretty much. And I know it's definitely from the factory, because you can tell by the screw holes and everything, and they were pretty careful cutting it out. So if you pull your dash and you find that on there, that's not something that somebody else did. They actually did that at the factory. I always find it interesting when I find parts on the interior, especially that have been duct taped together. So just thought I'd point that out. By the way, I'm going to pull this this lock set for the glove box off and replace it with the one in the car right now. So while I was cleaning up this replacement dash, I noticed a couple of things. One screw on the vent was the wrong size, and it was loose. So I found these are all the parts from this dash. Anyway, should have the same quantity of parts when I pull the dash that's in the car. So at this point, this is all extra stuff. But anyway, I found a slightly larger screw that fit that body nut better. You want to make sure all the body nuts are present. You got a bunch of them that hold on all these vents and little buttons and stuff like that. Clean your vents. Now's a great time to get in there and blow them out with compressed air. Not sure what that's all about. There's, again, little pieces of tape they put on at the factory, probably just to make a better seal. But if that stuff's dangling, you might as well just pull it off. I don't know that you actually need to replace it. Another thing I was looking at, let me flip this over. The bezel, which this is from the junk car. I actually got in there to clean these vents, which are really hard to clean. I just sprayed some cleaner on it and kind of soaked those veins, and then blew it out with compressed air, and it cleaned, because those are hard to get in between. So, and I was also curious if this bezel is the brown color. I don't think it is. I think it's just black. I think they were all black. I can check the part number. But another thing about these vents, let me get this out of here. Hang on a second. You want to double check and make sure all the veins are present, because they do come off, fall off. So you've got, they turn this way and they go up and down. So you got two sets of veins there, and all that's interconnected by brittle plastic. So that breaks real easy. Make sure all that's good. There is a flapper on the bezel that is actuated here, and basically what that does is close this flap and redirects all the air to the defrost. There's some foam associated with that always degrades and ends up getting blown out the vent. I've seen videos where guys have replaced that foam. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make sure the thing works. Also, you have a button to reset your odometer. Make sure that's present. It's spring loaded, so if your spring were missing, it wouldn't pop back out. You can see where it comes out. Let me show you that. It's right there. Yeah. So that resets the odometer switch. So otherwise, anyway, this bezel's in pretty good shape. I'll have to look at the bezel that's in the car now, more detail. And then on these vents, this is a little tricky here. So it's got another flapper underneath there. That's just to turn the vent off. The mechanism goes down into the flap, the duct. So you want to make sure all that's together and working properly. And what's happened when you stick the vent itself with the vanes in here, there'll be a little plastic tab that'll mesh up in that opening there. And that's how that works there. So you want to check that before you get it in the car. And if you need to swap some parts around or whatever, now's your chance. Also, there is foam associated with those. I'm not going to worry. They look okay. It's not falling apart too bad. So I'm just going to run with that. So yeah, great time to kind of check all this stuff out. Make sure, you know, because once you get in the throes of installing it, if you're like me, you're not going to worry too much about it. You're just going to do it. It's going to be too late to make it right. So, okay, we're ready to start taking the interior apart on this one to get the dash out. First thing we got to start with is the steering wheel. And because this is a 944 turbo, it's got an airbag steering wheel. And if I remember right, the way you get that off is through those screws right there on the back side of the steering wheel. So, but sometimes can be a little tricky because you don't have a whole lot of room for your screwdriver. This one doesn't appear to be too bad. Okay, let me wrestle with this and I'll have it out in a second. So just confirming, that's actually a Torx head, which is one of the few Torx head screws you're going to find on an 87 944. So let me find a bit that fits that. So that was a Torx 27, and I did unplug the battery, which is important when you're dealing with an airbag. So that little connector would come off, and then we've got a big nut holding the steering wheel on. Now note that I've already marked the orientation of the splined steering column for straight up, so I can get the wheel back on so it won't be cockeyed. You also need to disconnect the horn, because that steering wheel is going to pull right over the top of that wire, and then of course over the top of your airbag cable. So the nut on the steering column was actually a 24, and the horn cable stays with the steering wheel, so you don't really have to disconnect that. And then the Torx screw on the back side of the horn buttons were T27s. Next, I'm going to take this cover off the switches, get all that clear. Ultimately, the goal is to remove this bezel around the instrument gauges, or surround, or whatever you want to call it. So you got to kind of clear this out, so this will come out. Okay, with that switch cover off, now I'll get up in there. There's 3 screws on the top of the surround. There's a couple back in there that like vent around either side of the trip counter reset, and then there's another one down at the other end of the vent. So 3 up top. Also there's a couple that come up from the bottom, so it looks like 8 screws need to come out. Okay, with all those out or loose, these in the vent here, you either need to use a magnet or something, pull them completely out, or you can just take the vent out and they'll come with it. But just go easy. It's brittle plastic. If you jerk on it, it's probably going to break. And you got to kind of lift it over this a little, hopefully without breaking it. Come on. And there you go. Like one of the screws came out. By the way, all those screws should be the black interior screws, so you don't want to lose those. This car came with a bunch of silver sheet metal screws and all kinds of crap in it. So that gets you down to the instrument panel. There should be 4 screws that hold this instrument cluster in, and then once you get those off, there's ribbon connectors on the back side. Super fragile. Go easy here, because you don't want to bust up those ribbon connectors or monkey up the ribbon cables themselves. This is the trip counter reset. Right there, that little button. And I was not aware that there was a light mounted up there. Isn't that interesting? Okay then. Oh, that would be for to light up that slider on the vent. I'll be darned. Okay, Let me loosen up that cluster and I'll show you what's going on behind it. So here you can see the ribbon cable that's on the most left-hand side, and you got to kind of work from the left to the right. It's just how these cables, the length they have on them, and a lot of this you have to kind of do by feel. They're basically little tabs on the side, and I can't remember if you press them in or pull them out, but that releases the connector and then you can take it off. So here's, let me turn the light on. Well, I'll be damned. Here's the connector. This one of the tabs was actually broken off. This one goes vertically, so I call this the number 3. Number 2 is horizontal. And yeah, you pull those tabs out and it releases, so you can see the little hooks on them go in. Says it's in ultra wide mode, whatever that means. So yeah, just be careful. The ribbon part of it is on the back of the instrument, so that's where you really got to be careful, because all that stuff's super brittle. Anyway, we're going to take this over the bench. Later on, I'm going to be replacing a bunch of bulbs in the back of this with LEDs. All right, next thing is take the glove box out, which, let's see if I can turn the light on. Yep. 2 screws on the sides. There's a couple on that top lip, if I remember right. It might be missing here. Okay. And then should be some along the bottom. Yeah. So it actually come out in 2 pieces. The lid will come off first. These are just like hooks. Well, that one's missing. But anyway, lid will come out, and then the box itself. There's a light here, so when you pull the box out, you'll have a couple of connectors on the back side of that light. So before you pull the box out, you've got to drop this light down, because you got to, it just won't come out. Just take off the 2 connectors and stuff them back up in there, and then note at the very back of the box there's a clip holding it on. So you got to kind of reach back in there and pull it towards you. Meanwhile, you got to feed this out. So it's a little tricky, but it'll slide out. All right, so the glove box completely out. Now, you know, one thing I didn't think about, this is an airbag car, and that dash that I'm putting in there is not an airbag dash. So we're going to find out how all that works here once we get back in there. There is a way to put a jumper on the airbag circuit, because if I remember right, if the ignition doesn't see the airbag, it may not start. I'll research that some more before I do the next segment. At this point, though, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the center console. That definitely has to come out before you can get the dash out. So that's 1 screw on the side. This compartment has got some screws in it. That comes out. I'll have to cut that wire tie on the stick shift. And there's a couple of hidden screws underneath the ashtray. So good news is that stereo, it's got the proper connectors on it. I can just undo the connectors. So all that'll come out as one piece. Okay, I got the center console out, hopefully without breaking any connectors or anything. So the radio came out fine. And I didn't even have to pull off the shifter knob, because the old boot on there, the leather boot, the exterior boot, this is the inner boot. You actually need both of them to keep the fumes out of the car, but the outer boot was walled out enough to go right over the handle. So that's helpful, because there's a bunch of rubber grommets inside of these shifter knobs. And it seems like once you yank it, you've got to redo all those grommets to get it back on there properly. So at this point, with the console out, now we can look at the ends here and start. You move this trim piece. That allows you to get this vent off. These larger bolts here actually hold the dash in. And then this trim piece on the A-pillar has to come off. So let me start into this side and get all that done. So with that trim piece off, you can see the screws that hold the vent on. And I'm pretty sure that's all there are. Also, here's the start of the screws that hold. There's a whole series of trim panels that go along the front here, and hopefully it won't break any of that stuff, because it's super brittle. Okay, so the vent is loose, but you can see that knob is interconnected. So I want to get this panel out and away. I think that knob is supposed to pull out, and that's what slots in. If you remember earlier, I was showing you how it slots into the vent mechanism. It controls the on or off flapper. So I'm going to pull this. There's a little hidden cover here. Pull that off and get that screw out, and then I can pull this out enough to get a better look at it. Okay, yeah, that did the trick. So now with that panel a little loose, that vent will come out. So you can see how it's interconnected and how that lever goes down inside. So that's the reason. And you don't have to take the knob off. It just slides. That knob will slide right through that opening. Okay, so now the trim on the A-pillar, unfortunately, to get that off, you've got to remove the visors, that courtesy light, and this header, because that trim goes under that header. So that's a bunch of extra work, but it has to be done. Crap. So the courtesy light, which this one's a new courtesy light, it's just got like a tab on the side. You press that in and it'll come right out. So just disconnect the terminals on that, and there you go. The swivel point for the visor and the anchor both hold that header in place. So you got to take all those screws out. So you'll notice with that header padding off that I've still got the black interior trim that was part of the linen package, I guess. I've never seen this in that linen color. It's always been black. It is offered in brown. However, when I tried to pull it out of that Kentucky car, it just all fell to pieces. And this stuff is not very good shape. I've always contemplated on getting the material, the vinyl, and just cutting it to size, but I've just never gotten around to it. So anyway, just about ready to pull these pillar pads off. Note that these little plastic things, you want to save them, especially if they're a special color, because you can buy them, but they're like $5 each for a little plastic insert. It's ridiculous. All right, a pillar trim on this side is out. You got to pull this seal out a little. It actually helps capture it. And note that your roof drain goes down through here. Along that wire there is a cable for that courtesy light. And then this is an attachment point for the dash. So I can tell you right now, this car has been repainted because normally that would not have paint on it. So I'm going to pull off the side panel and get this vent out. And then go over there and pull that other trim piece. So under the steering stalk, there's a hidden screw. Actually, there's supposed to be another one up there, but it's not present. Otherwise, I think this side is ready to come off. The headlight switch is there. It looks like it's missing a screw as well. So anyway, I'm going to get that one present screw out and see if I can get this little section out. So that's all free. You got two multi-connectors, one for the fog light switch, the other is a dimmer for the instrument panel, which I'm going to test that dimmer, because if that don't work, the instrument panel lights don't work. And then looks like a multi-connector on the headlight switch itself. So a warning on these switches on these panels. A lot of them have these really thin tabs, and when you go to pull the connector off the switch, for example the dimmer, so that connector should come off, right? Well, it'll just break that tab off. You can see where this one's been broken off. Now probably what I'll do when I put that back in, because every time you try to do the dimmer, you know, it's going to try to shove back in there. Put some RTV or something in there to kind of hold it in place. But I know it happens a lot to the dimmer. And also it's happened over here. That switch, oh God, that is, well, I don't know. That's another rheostat. Maybe this is interior light dimmer. And that's instrument panel dimmer. Either way, they both break off. And I've seen the caution light get pushed in as well. So when you're dealing with those, you just got to be super careful, because it's just flimsy as hell. It's just super thin plastic. Okay, passenger side A-pillar trim is off. Same thing, you got a roof drain, no electrical on this side. So next I'm going to finish pulling these little thin trim pieces all across the front here. And I'll show you what I find as I go along there. So there's a hidden screw in this orifice here. That is where the HVAC draws air to set the automatic thermostat and all that crap. So you have to use a little pick or something and pry that grill off. And if I can get that off without breaking it, it's going to be a miracle. Yeah, It broke. Two little tiny tabs. I don't know how you'd get that off without breaking. Oh, it looks like it might turn. I don't know. I don't know that helps you any to rotate it. Look at that. Well, hopefully the one that came out of the other car, the tabs aren't broken on it. Okay, so here's the back side of that. You got your cigarette lighter. That was easy. You got the clock. That's a 4-pin. Oddly, there's a backlight that's supposed to be associated with that clock. I've got a couple of clocks laying around. I might have that little fixture that goes in there. And then the other one, of course, is your emergency light. Again, emergency light has those same little paper thin tabs. So use caution when you're prying that connector off. So here's what you're left with. That's a tube associated with that climate control. So that goes on the back side of this. All right, let's move on to the next panel. Or actually, I'm going to do the ignition panel. The key switch has got a rubber grommet around it. Pull the head off. That's interesting. It's got like a metal collar that helps it lock in. Okay, that's going to be fun to get back on. That Kentucky car, the lock was all jacked up on it, so that's a new experience for me. There's some more screws holding this in somewhere. I'm going to have to do a deep dive here and find out where those screws are. Well, that was easy. There's another one underneath here. Once I get that off, all that should come off. All right, so that's off, and you can see, like I said, so this rheostat is wiper speed for intermittent wiper, whatever. And looks like both tabs that held it in place are missing. No wonder it fell down in there. And then you've got your rear defroster control. So let me see if I can get the connector off that without breaking stuff. Okay, and then this last panel, just pull these knobs off. Oh, come on. And this panel should just pry up gently. I think there's some little tiny plastic tabs that hold it on. All right, let me get these knobs off without breaking anything, and I'll show you what holds that last panel on. So I didn't find any tabs. I think those edges just catch in the slots for these sliders. That's what holds it on. So all I know is I was super careful pulling on it because, again, this is like paper thin, so it'll break in a heartbeat. All right, so what have I got left? I think this light needs to come out, and this reset, which, if I remember right, it's just like a push tab. Yeah, there it is. Looks like somebody's actually glued that. So that's just like a push tab that holds it to the dash frame. And see how this thing is in there. No, seems awful fragile. All right, let me explore that a little more. So if I remember right, you've got bolts down in here in the entertainment area. Of course, the 2 bolts over here on the side. We pulled them off the other side. So 6 bolts. I think that's it. I'll look at the other dash to see if there's anything else missing. But this thing should be about ready to go. Unfortunately, I got to pull these switches off, which I don't think is too bad. Yeah, because the dash goes all the way around it. Yeah, so got to do that. So the car from Kentucky, the parts car, did not have this because it's a non-airbag car. This is associated, I believe, with the horn and the airbag. And it's got some instructions on the back about how to line this up. But it's pretty easy because that lines up with that offset there. So that should be pretty straightforward. So that also, what that ring does is turn your blinker off. When you turn your steering wheel, that's going to hit that little tab and turn your blinker off. Still looking at how these switches come out. I'm trying to find, there's usually about 4 screws that hold them in. So underneath the column, there's an 8mm screw with like a collar. I just loosened that, and that, I don't know if you got to take it all the way off or whatever, but that's what's holding those switches on. Yeah, once you loosen it up real good, it'll slide off. It's like a rubber collar underneath that metal band. And then it's just a matter of undoing the multi-connectors. Looks like there's one associated with the turn signal and another for cruise control and wiper blades. So, and then there's a multi-connector here that's associated with that horn airbag ring. Looks like a ground cable going back up in there. Anyway, let me get all that stuff off and get this switch assembly out of here. Okay, here's a better look at the back side of that. So yeah, that collar is on the bottom. We're looking at it upside down, basically. So when you put it in the car, the orientation will be like this. Turn signal to your left. That's pretty good assembly. The early cars, it's frankly a piece of junk. It's several pieces kind of cobbled together. So there's the big multi-connectors that go on the back of it. And then this connector, which would be associated with cruise control. And then the airbag. And as far as I know, that's just a ground. It's a pretty unique connector though. So yeah, we're getting close to extracting this dash. Probably should take out that HVAC control unit, and I gotta take a closer look at that silly light. Otherwise, I think we're good to go. So I'm pulling out these 13mm bolts here in the console area, and hopefully that'll be it. Oh, I still need to get the HVAC control unit out. Don't want to monkey that up. So that has 2 big multi-connectors on the back, and it's got those long tabs on the side. You got to pry up, get a flathead screwdriver for that so they don't break off. And that should be all that's on that thing. That front panel with that clear plexi is really fragile. Okay, I was wrong about that. So those tabs those are caps. These are just press-on multi-connectors. There's no locking mechanism or anything. There is one more right here. That should just press on. Actually, it's got one tab there that holds it on. So, all right, so that's that. Yeah, finding these that actually work is getting pretty hard to come by. And I think this one does work. All right, let me put that on the bench. And then now I think we're getting really close. Need to pull them HVAC tubes off the ducts, or the ducts off the vents, or whatever. Get that done. And I'm sure there's some other stuff in here I'm not finding. Real close, almost out. Okay, just the ducts have like expando. You can just pull them off. But I'm almost out of battery on the phone. So this thing's ready to come out. I'm just going to start working on it. I don't think there's anything left. I'll pick it back up tomorrow. I'll save this. It's almost out. And hopefully tomorrow, when I come back, it will be out. Thanks for watching. Yep, that's the only thing that's holding it in. Looks like a 10mm bolt that holds the airbag assembly in there. So once I get that out of there, it should come, dash should pull. All right, I got that thing out. I'll tell you, the airbags are heavier than hell. Much heavier than the other one. And here's something before I close this up. This flap was stuck in the open position, so that's your defroster. That was really causing a problem. I could not get the dash out, so I had to disconnect the linkage. There's a little rod here. Just goes up in that little fitting right there. So if you can't get it out, that's what's going on. And it was real tight around the console. Didn't want to let go, but I got her out. So, okay, now I'm calling it an evening. And we'll pick this back up. Tomorrow's going to be cold. Probably won't work out here for a while till it warms up. But and I also got to research about this whole airbag thing. So, thanks again for watching, guys.